It was snowing again in Easton. Not the thick, movie scene flakes that soften everything, but the quiet kind, cold, fine, and steady. They drifted sideways across the streetlight outside my window. December had arrived with its usual sense of ceremony, and for a few moments, I let myself watch it like I used to as a girl, nose pressed against the glass, waiting for Christmas to feel like magic. Back then, I'd count the days until we strung the lights on the porch. I'd help Mom wrap presents, even the ones she told me not to peek at. And Dad, he'd pretend not to notice me sneaking the last candy cane off the tree. There was laughter, even if it was thin. There was warmth, or at least I thought so. Now, I was 38, a school administrator, single, living in a modest third-floor apartment with a heating system that coughed more than it worked. I wasn't bitter, just quiet. A kind of stillness had settled in me over the years. It's strange how silence can become its own companion. I still bought a tiny tree every year, still lit a single cinnamon-scented candle. Old habits, I suppose. But deep down, I had stopped waiting for Christmas to feel like anything at all. I wasn't angry, just tired of pretending I mattered to them. The message came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was grading essays, sipping lukewarm coffee, when my phone buzzed. It was from Kara, my older sister. Just a line of text. Mom says there's only one ticket, so you'll have to skip the party this year. No punctuation, no emoji, no explanation. Just that. One ticket. I stared at the screen, rereading it like maybe I'd misunderstood. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, unsure what I was even supposed to say. There was no follow-up, no call from Mom, no invitation to talk it out, just the same pattern playing on repeat, me on the outside. I put the phone down, breathed through my nose. Pressed my lips together like that could keep the old ache from leaking out. It wasn't the first time something like this had happened. I'd always been the one who gave space. The one who said, "It's okay, I'll stay back." When Kara's kids needed the spare room at Mom's for Thanksgiving, I stayed home. When money was tight, I chipped in quietly, never asked for it back. They called me the strong one, like it was a compliment. But what it really meant was, you'll take the hit and we know you won't make a fuss. Still, this one stung in a different way. It was Christmas, and I wasn't even worth a phone call. Maybe they really couldn't afford 2 tickets. Maybe Mom didn't want to choose between daughters. I tried to tell myself those things, but I kept circling back to one question. Why not call me? Why not ask? The second ticket had always been a ghost in our house, something never quite there, never quite mine, a placeholder for my place in the family. When I was younger, I thought if I worked harder, loved louder, they'd see me, that I'd earn the second ticket. But now it just felt like a metaphor for everything I didn't get. At what point do we stop trying to be the good daughter? I didn't answer Kara's text. I didn't trust myself to say anything that wouldn't come out sideways. Instead, I waited. Maybe Mom would call. Maybe she'd explain. Say it was a mistake. Say she meant to tell me. But things got chaotic. The call never came. What came instead were photos, posted online by Kara. The whole family in matching red and white sweaters, standing in front of the giant tree downtown. Smiling, laughing. Even the dog had a little scarf. I looked at those photos longer than I should have, zoomed in, looked for some sign they missed me. There wasn't one. Not a chair left empty, not a mention in the caption. I hadn't just been left out. I'd been erased. I thought of all those holiday cards I sent over the years, the ones I never got back, the birthdays I remembered, the gifts I mailed for the nieces and nephews, carefully wrapped, even when I couldn't afford much. And yet, no one could spare a phone call. Family isn't who you spend holidays with. It's who would notice if you weren't there. That night, I sat in my apartment, the tree glowing faintly in the corner, lights flickering like they weren't sure if they wanted to stay on. I stared at my phone. My finger hovered over the screen again. And this time, I typed, "Was it really about the ticket?" I didn't expect a long reply. I didn't even expect kindness. But I didn't expect silence either. The message was marked read. And then, nothing. No reply. No typing bubbles. Just read. I set the phone face down on the table, leaned back in my chair. My jaw clenched. Not in rage, just a kind of quiet resolve. That bitter, brittle kind that comes from years of swallowing your feelings until they don't taste like anything anymore. I whispered to no one in particular. I won't let this happen again. The next morning, I opened my eyes to silence. The kind that doesn't ask questions. The kind that wraps around you and dares you to break it. Snow was still falling outside, soft and steady. I stayed under the covers longer than usual, not because I was warm, because I wasn't ready to face the day. The phone on my nightstand sat untouched. I didn't need to check it. I already knew there were no new messages. My thumb hovered over the screen anyway. The message I'd sent to my mother the night before was still sitting there. Was it really about the ticket? Just those 7 words. Seen. No reply. It hung in the air like the taste of something you can't quite swallow. When someone ignores you long enough, you stop asking why. You start asking what's wrong with you. I got up eventually, made coffee, poured it into the same chipped mug I always used, and stared out the window. The world outside looked peaceful. Inside, I was unraveling quietly. I opened my phone, scrolled again through the same posts Kara had shared, everyone in their pajamas, holding mugs with whipped cream and sprinkles. They'd even posted a boomerang of the kids throwing fake snow in the air. At the dinner table, I noticed something strange, a chair with no one in it. Set, but empty. They remembered to set an extra place. They just didn't invite me to fill it. It wasn't an oversight. It was a message. Weeks earlier, I'd offered to help with the party. I'd texted Mom. "Do you need anything from me this year?" She replied, "It's already handled, hun." That was it. No follow-up, no invitation to come early, help decorate, wrap presents, just a full stop. Like I was a stranger asking about someone else's event. It was always framed as logistics, not enough space, limited budget. But sitting here now, I saw the pattern clearer than ever. Birthdays I learned about from Facebook. Family vacations I heard of only after the return. Christmas gifts that looked like they'd been picked up last minute at a gas station. And always, I was the one sitting in the kitchen while the rest of them filled the living room. You can tell who matters in a family by who gets to sit on the living room sofa. I sat there a long while, phone still in hand, thumb tracing the side of the screen, when I decided to call someone I hadn't spoken to in too long. Aunt Celia, Dad's sister. She answered after 3 rings, her voice the same soft rasp I remembered from childhood. "Melanie?" she asked, surprised but warm. We didn't dance around it. I told her everything. The message, the silence, the photos. She listened, quietly, didn't interrupt, just let me lay it all out. Then, after a pause, she said it like she'd been carrying it around for years. "Your mother always resented how much your father adored you." I sat back, stunned. She thought he spoiled you, that he looked at you differently. And maybe he did, Mel. But that wasn't your fault. You were a child. I didn't know what to say. The room felt colder somehow. "She doesn't hate you," Celia added softly. "But she's never forgiven how easy it was for him to love you." Tears threatened, but I blinked them back. "I just feel invisible." "Don't," Celia said, firm now. "Family doesn't get to hide behind blood when they're cutting you with silence." We talked a while longer. She promised to visit soon. We laughed a little too. Small, necessary laughter that kept the bitterness from taking over. Before we hung up, she said something offhandedly. "Oh, and did Kara show off that necklace yet? Custom made. Said your mom had it done for her." My stomach dropped. I hadn't gotten anything. Not a card. Not even a forwarded holiday meme. After we hung up, I opened the group chat we all used to share. I'd been removed a month ago. No one said why. I scrolled up through old messages I could still access. Then I saw it. "Mom, got that second one made, but don't tell Mel." Second one. 2 necklaces. 2 tickets. My breath caught. It wasn't about money. It never was. They didn't forget me. They chose to leave me out. That night, I went to the hall closet and pulled down a dusty box. Inside was a photo album I hadn't opened in years. I flipped through the pages until I found it. Christmas, 1995. I was 10. In the photo, my dad had his arm wrapped around me, beaming. I was holding a teddy bear, smiling with gap-toothed pride. And behind us, my mother. Standing stiff, arms crossed, eyes somewhere else entirely. I touched the edge of the photo. I've been missing the wrong clues all along. I turned pages in that photo album late into the night, heart pounding. The memory of Kara's text and Celia's revelation played behind my eyelids. The quiet of my apartment seemed to press in. I felt raw vulnerability and fierce curiosity merging. Then I stopped. Christmas 1995. Dad's arm wrapped around me, a gift in his hand, both of us smiling as though nothing hurt yet. I traced the smile, the folds of the coat, the sparkle in his eyes. That moment was mine. Later, I remembered. The framed version in Mom's hallway. The same tree, the same lighting. But I was missing, completely. She had cut me out. The photograph flickered in my mind. Proof that memory, too, can be edited. It's amazing how much you miss when you're trying to be grateful. I closed the album with trembling fingers, breathing shallow. Grief and betrayal tangled inside me. This was no longer neglect. It was intent. In a dusty box at the back of my closet, I found an envelope addressed to Kara. It looked old, edges yellowed. The handwriting looked familiar. My name had once been there, faintly erased beneath hers. I opened it with care. A holiday card, simple. And inside, a note in the handwriting I knew best. My father's. I wish I'd done more to protect you. I see more than you think. You have a light your mother doesn't understand. Don't let her dim it. My breath caught. He'd written it to me, and for years, someone hid it from me. So it wasn't just my mother who cut me out. My chest ached with clarity. That wasn't kindness or oversight. It was a powerful betrayal cloaked in silence. I remembered Dad's death. Cold January morning, 19 years old, thinking I didn't matter enough to be notified. It all happened so fast, Kara told me then. I believed her. But now that line felt hollow. Fast was the story she chose. I whispered his words to the empty room. When people show you who they are, believe them. But when they edit you out of your story, it's time to write a new one. I grabbed a notepad and jotted. What they took, what they made me believe, what I'm taking back. The list came flooding. Birthdays, holidays, graduation dinners, little things they denied. It all pieced itself together. I opened my laptop, attached a photo of the letter, typed subject. You never thought I'd find this, did you? The cursor blinked. I hovered. My fingers steadied. Then I stopped. Not yet. Timing is everything. I saved the draft. Printed a copy, folded it, locked it in the desk drawer beside Dad's watch. I closed the drawer, leaned against it, and whispered. Not yet. I spent the morning avoiding confrontation. I watched Kara from the corner of my eye whenever we passed in the hallway. She locked drawers I used to help organize. She whispered on the phone in the bathroom, with the door cracked just enough that I could hear her stop talking when I entered. She changed subjects when I walked into the room. Oh, I was just telling Aunt Connie about the weather, she'd say, immediately shifting tone. After yet another awkward moment, I sat down at my small kitchen table and opened my journal. People think silence is peace, but sometimes silence is just where truth gets buried alive. I wrote that slowly, letting the weight of each word settle. I began documenting everything: texts, glances, odd comments, timing, not paranoia, protection. Later, during lunch, Kara sent me a casual text. Mom's planning a family-only dinner next Friday. Too bad you're probably swamped with work. She didn't sound disappointed, just certain. That afternoon, I checked Facebook on my phone and saw it posted by my cousin, photos from that dinner. Mom, Kara, cousins I barely knew, smiling in identical sweaters, tagged Early Christmas with Family. I screenshot them. Twice. I saved them in a folder I titled, They Rewrite Me. They'd coordinated the exclusion, made it look natural. That night, back home, Kara was in the kitchen. She didn't look up when I walked in. "Busy evening?" I asked. "Just catching up," she replied, her voice gentle. A text buzzed my phone. From Mom. "I don't know why you're upset. You know we love you. You're just being too sensitive." My jaw tightened. She didn't see me. She didn't want to see me. Later, I found myself in front of the bathroom mirror. I studied my reflection, tired eyes, clenched jaw. I said aloud, "You're not crazy. They're just careful." The echo of that felt like spring rain through a cracked window, small, insistent, cleansing. I stopped doing things for them. No more cooking dinners, no more emotional check-ins. I exited group chats. I changed the lock on my bedroom door without a word. Kara rattled the doorknob one evening. "Privacy now?" she said, voice raised. "Yeah," I answered. "It's mine." In the quiet that followed, I opened my laptop and searched programs for family trauma, emotional neglect. I bookmarked therapists, legal definitions. I needed to know everything. I drafted a message to Mom and Kara, words I'd carried in my chest for years. Accusation, truth, demands. I ended it with, "I refuse to keep playing the role you wrote for me." I hovered over send, hand shaking. But then I closed the laptop. Save as draft. I leaned over the screen and whispered, "Not yet. I want you to see it in my eyes first." I lay in bed longer than usual, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the morning before. I thought about the unsent message, how my fingers hovered and then withdrew. Choosing silence wasn't defeat, it was control. I made a decision. I would stop giving them free access to my emotions. From that point forward, my routines shifted. I stopped running errands for Mom. I declined invitations politely but firmly. When Kara asked me to pick up groceries, if I was free, I replied, "I'm working." No explanations, no guilt. They expected me to be there. Now I expected them to acknowledge me. They want a silent version of me, fine. But I get to choose the silence now. I scribbled that in my journal, letting the resolve echo in my chest. I wasn't erasing myself anymore. I was redefining my boundaries. Then one evening, Kara knocked on my door unexpectedly. She had Mom with her. My heart tightened. We sat in the living room. Mom started softly, "We just want to talk." Kara leaned forward. "You've been distant, cold. Seems like you've changed." Mom looked me in the eyes and said, "Sometimes I don't know what hurts you and what you're protecting." They tried to gaslight me. Kara denied any knowledge of the letter. Mom claimed she had no memory of the photo cropping. "Maybe you misread," Kara said. "Maybe your mind is playing tricks on you." My chest tensed. I didn't cry. I didn't plead. I simply played a 3-minute recording I'd captured weeks ago, snippets of Kara lying about outings, omitting me from plans. The room went still, their faces drained. They couldn't speak. I packed my purse, stood, and said calmly, "I'm done pretending I don't know." Then walked them to the door. Once they left, the air in the apartment felt hollow. I slumped onto the couch and let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. I opened my journal. Fighting gaslighting is like trying to punch fog. You can swing all you want and still choke on it. I stared at the words, letting them settle. I asked myself if playing that audio was petty or necessary. A memory surfaced. Dad told me once, truth doesn't always make peace, but it keeps you from drowning. I felt tears prick my eyes. Years of second-guessing myself fell away like skin. I wasn't wrong for demanding recognition. I was human for needing it. Then I began to take real steps. I searched for therapy near me, trauma, estrangement, emotional abuse support groups. I bookmarked articles about invisible sibling and scapegoat roles in families. I wrote another list in bold. What I owe them versus what they took. I didn't expect balance. I expected clarity. Without telling anyone, I scheduled my first therapy appointment for next Tuesday. And then I did something radical. I made new holiday plans. No waiting for their call. No hoping. I texted one friend and asked her to host a small dinner. I would be there. Later, a message from Jacob appeared. Heard about the dinner. Sorry, wanna talk? My finger hovered over reply. I breathed deep and whispered, let me see who shows up when I stop chasing. I turned off my phone, grabbed my jacket and keys, and walked out into the night. That afternoon, I walked out of work early again, heart heavy. My mind already replayed every confrontation I had avoided the night before. At home, tension felt like heat. The hallway was partially blocked by stacked boxes. Doors that should be open were closed tight. I paused when I heard a whisper behind a locked door. Inside my room, I noticed my coat missing from the hook where I always hung it. My desk drawer was ajar, something I had locked before leaving. The sense of intrusion bit deep. Kara appeared in the corridor, calm. Don't overstretch yourself with needless drama, she said, her voice casual, as if she wasn't pulling strings. My phone buzzed. Mom. Her message. We're tired of tension. Let's talk tomorrow. Anger rose. Calm resolution hardened behind it. I refused to wait for someone else's apology. The next day, I drove to my parents' old house. I said I needed an ornament Dad gave me. Inside, the air felt colder than expected. I stood before the family portrait on the wall. It was the edited version, the one that left me out. In the storage room, I found the original framed photo. There I was beside Dad, smiling, alive. In the version hanging, I was gone, cropped out. I placed both side by side, snapped a picture, and sent it to Kara silently. The betrayal struck harder than any words. At work, I was pulled aside. Why haven't you replied? My boss asked. She opened an email chain with all participants, everyone but me. I hadn't even been CC'd. Later at home, I searched for my phone charger. It was gone. My keys caught in the lock as I tried to enter, delayed just long enough. I stood outside my door, breathing slowly. The hostility of absence, of manipulation, they were turning walls inward. That night, I carried my camera through my apartment, photographing slight shifts, a lipstick in my drawer, the moved chair, a calendar without my name. I compiled it all into a timeline. When I was removed, when the phone stopped ringing, when the picture changed, I called my therapist's office, asking for an emergency appointment. Upstairs, I heard laughter and clinking glasses, holiday music, voices I'd been barred from. I rose from my desk, walked toward the stairs, then paused. Instead, I opened my laptop, typed, I see you moved me out of the picture. Want to know how I reclaim my frame? And I pressed send. I stepped into the room filled with my family one more time, holding a thin folder of evidence. The lights were soft, the tree's ornaments shimmering, but tension hung heavier than any decoration. I exhaled, squared my shoulders and said, there are a few things we need to clear up before more silence becomes the norm. I laid out 2 printed photos side by side. One was the original family portrait, me between them, Dad's hand on my shoulder. The other was the version now hanging in their home, edited, cropped, void of me. I watched their faces shift. Sabine's gaze darted away. Mom's fingers shook near her glass. You edited me out of your stories, I said, voice steady. Let me edit myself back in. No one spoke. Silence stretched. I stepped toward the tree and picked a small box with my name on it. Untouched, I unwrapped it in front of them. Inside, nothing. Not a single item. The card inside was blank. You gave everyone around me something. To me, you left a void. Stillness pressed in like a wall. Then Aunt Judith rose from her chair. She walked toward the photos. I kept the real one, she said, holding her arm steady. She revealed a faded original version, me included, pulled from a drawer. She said, this matters. Shock coursed under the room's surface. Mom's chest heaved. Sabine's face paled. Judith turned and withdrew some letters. I also preserved his words, she said, voice quiet but certain. She read, true respect comes from truth, not from hiding shadows. The murmur around us turned sharp. Judith then raised her phone and played a forwarded email. Mom's voice rang clear. Melanie is too sensitive. She exaggerates everything and thinks life owes her. The room sucked in air. Mom's eyes watered. Words have roots. They sprout lies if left underground, Judith said. My heart pounded. I saw it all. The narrative control, the image crafting, the silencing. I folded my arms. You will do 3 things. Restore the photo, admit what you hid, apologize, publicly, before midnight. Sabine's lips trembled. Mom's face twisted. Kara leaned forward. Or what? She spat. I locked eyes with her. Or I release everything. The room seemed to gasp. My mother stuttered, but no sound came. I turned away, gathering my folder. My last words hung behind me. This is no longer about closing wounds. It's about not letting you reopen me again. At the door, my phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. Just saw what's happening. Proud of you. I slipped the folder under my arm and walked into the winter night. I woke before dawn. In the dim light, I sat at my kitchen table, opening every file, rereading every message, listening to silences between lines. I dressed with intention, not to look pretty, but to feel purpose. The cold air on my skin as I walked to the car felt sharp, honest. I drove past houses glowing in holiday lights while my own past felt like a shadow behind me. They decorated this house with memories I was never invited into. When I arrived, I didn't knock. I walked in. The family was assembled already. Warm smiles, soft chatter, ornaments glinting in glare. I carried proofs, letters, recordings. I stood before them, voice calm, shoulders square. I came tonight not to ask forgiveness, but to speak truth. I pulled the unsent letter from my bag. Before anyone spoke, I read aloud. Voices hushed. I stayed quiet so as not to burden you. I believed silence would protect us, but silence became my own erasure. Tears welled in Mom's eyes. Sabine's face turned tight. And the room pressed in. This is not me begging, it's me arriving. Then a familiar voice cut the tension. Gideon appeared via video call on the living room screen. I knew both sides. I saw what she was erased from, he said. He mentioned the nights when he confronted Sabine, the times Mom never returned Melanie's calls during crises. He named lies, evidence, pain. Mom's lips parted. Sabine's jaw dropped. I didn't flinch. I called out betrayal one by one, the photo, the exclusions, the silent gifts. Elara tried to deflect. It's complicated. I held firm. Sabine shouted, You're twisting things. I played the clips I'd saved, her voice, her words. The crowd shifted. Guests moved. Voices overlapped, but I stayed composed. Evidence spoke loudest. With chaos rising, I stepped away. I left the letter on the coffee table, the restored portrait propped for all to see. I walked to the door, paused, turned, and said, This is not revenge. I'm reclaiming my story. I walked out as the storm of their voices followed behind me. My phone buzzed. The confrontation was being shared, streamed, commented, reshared. I glanced at my reflection in a window, eyes clear, shoulders square. The light came in slow and gray, filtering through the slats of my blinds, stretching across the hardwood like it didn't want to wake me. I opened my eyes before the alarm could. The silence in my apartment used to be suffocating. Now it felt like a sigh. Not because things were perfect, just still. I wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and walked to the kitchen. The coffee machine sputtered like always. I stood by the window as it brewed, watching snow drift onto the fire escape. It was soft, quiet, nothing like the chaos from the night before. I didn't replay the confrontation. I didn't need to. It had done what it needed to do. I sipped my coffee and opened my laptop. Messages blinked in from every direction. Facebook, email, even LinkedIn. Some were cold. A few accused me of trying to shame my family. But most were different. Kind, curious, honest. Strangers writing, that happened to me too. Old friends saying, I wish I'd known. Cousins I barely remembered, sending a thumbs up, or a heart, or just, hey. I didn't feel brave, but I didn't feel alone anymore either. There was one envelope, real paper, real ink, wedged under my door. No return address, just my name, Melanie, in cursive, the kind no one uses anymore. I opened it slowly. Dear Melanie, it began. You don't know me, but I knew you. I was there when you were born. I am your mother's older sister, the one they stopped mentioning after I walked away. My breath caught. She wrote about growing up in the same house, the pressure, the silence, how my mother wasn't always this way, how once she used to fight for small things, like letting her sister cut her hair short or borrow a red coat. She gave up long before you ever asked why, the letter said. She stopped fighting and started surviving. I left. She stayed. And surviving changed her. It wasn't an apology. It didn't excuse what my mother had done, but it told a story, a deeper one. A wound passed down, repackaged, passed again. I folded the letter gently. I didn't know if I could forgive my mother, but maybe I didn't need to, for her. Maybe forgiveness was something I gave myself. A soft rustling near the door pulled me back. A little drawing, pushed through the gap. I picked it up, bright crayons on printer paper, a messy picture of me with a crown on my head, surrounded by stars and hearts. Miss Mel is the best, it said in squiggly letters. Danny, that kid from down the hall who always waved, always asked if I wanted to see his Lego tower. I stared at the drawing longer than I thought I would. Then I walked to the fridge and pinned it right next to a photo of me and my mom from years ago, the one I'd buried in a drawer. They didn't match, but maybe they didn't have to. Maybe family isn't about who raised you. Maybe it's about who colors your world when it's running out of light. Later, I bundled up and stepped outside. I didn't wear armor this time. No need for battle, just a warm coat, scarf, and the quiet certainty that I wasn't walking backward anymore. I headed toward the community center, a place I'd volunteered for years without ever telling anyone. Familiar faces greeted me, some cautiously, some with open arms. One woman approached with red eyes and shaky hands. I watched your video, she whispered. It made me call my son. I nodded. No advice, no fixing, just presence. By late afternoon, I found myself scribbling in a notebook at the corner of the coffee room. Thoughts turned into paragraphs, paragraphs into pages. I didn't know if it had become a blog or a book or just something I printed once and tucked into a drawer. But it felt like the beginning of something, not just for me. Back home, the sky had dimmed. I took a walk to the park, a little farther than I usually go. I sat on a bench, one my father used to take me to after church. Same chipped wood, same metal armrest. I pulled out the photo from the Christmas party, the one I had saved, not burned. I set it gently on the bench beside me. This isn't forgetting, I murmured. This is remembering without bleeding. I stayed until the cold started to bite, then I stood, ready to leave. My phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. A woman's voice came through, soft, like it had taken her courage just to speak. You don't know me, she said. But I think we share the same story, and I need to tell you mine.